Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are looking at all the new cards for the next expansion to Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. So, quite generously, I think Hearthstone has decided to make it easy to see all the cards. They've revealed them on their own website and through several other sources, but you can also just look at them through the game, which is when I step in because I want to actually be able to look at all the cards in a more ordered manner and a less controlled flow of information. Now, if you look at the shop, it seems like, because this is ending August 30th, that the Boomsday project is not going to start until the 30th. So they've also given me an incredibly free amount of time to look at all the new cards, which is great. Also, when the new expansion comes out, that will be a great thing because I can rebuild a lot of decks using hsreplay.net and the amount of dust I've been saving up to try to get better decks that actually win. I have seen some more success with that. Now, to see the Boomsday project, what you want to do is go into crafting mode, and then you can select under standard sets Boomsday, and you'll notice you don't see the unique cards. You just include uncraftable cards because right now they are all uncraftable. They will be craftable, one assumes, at least. They always have been in the past once the set is out. So we're going to look at the Druid cards today, and then I will have separate videos for each of the character class, and then one particularly long video for the neutral class. I'm also starting rather late, 2:30 in the morning, to stream this. You know, in the past I've tried to get these videos out really fast, and they've probably helped me get a few more views, but they've also certainly killed me as far as just how much extra work it takes. But let's hop into it. The first card we have is a 1 mana common card that is a spell called the Biology Project. Each player gains 2 mana crystals. That's an interesting card for the Druid. It seems a little overpowered. Every expansion probably moves that power creep up just a little bit. That's generally what you want to do, so that people play the new cards and get bored and don't have really reason to stick with the old cards. This also softens the blow, of course, when the old cards become wild sets and thus aren't playable in the standard play, which a considerable amount of the expansions are now in the wild sets. So we definitely need to get new cards to replace them. Next one we have is a 1 mana legendary. That's what this little dragon card. It is also indicated as a legendary by the legendary here and the orange symbol. Of course, it's a little faded out right now because I don't actually have the cards. It's a spell called Floop's Glorious Gloop. Whenever a minion dies this turn, gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. For the Druid, I don't know what this would really play with. So there must be some new cards that synergize with this, because just in general the Druid doesn't tend to have 7 minions on the board, and then at a point in the game where spending 1 mana and then gaining 7 more mana because you killed 7 minions. I guess you could gain as many as 14 mana if you could go that high, so you could get as many as 10, because if there were 5 minions on your side and 5 minions on the opponent's side, which would probably be somewhere around the 5th or 6th turn, you play 1 mana, you get 5 more mana for that 1 turn. It still really feels like you'd only be playing a extra 5 mana card. So I don't know what this synergizes with yet, so it seems like it has to synergize with something to be a legendary. Although in the last expansion, synergies. A lot of cards were kind of just labeled as legendary because every druid, every character class needed to have certain numbers of legendaries, and there definitely were cards that didn't feel like they should be legendary or limited to having only one. This is a good example. Like, why couldn't I play 2 of these and double the amount of mana I get? How is that really going to change anything? Moving on, we have our first minion, a 2 mana, 2 attack, 3 health minion called Dendroglist. It has a battle cry. If you control a Trent, discover a spell. You have a decent chance. It's not the highest chance right now to have a Trent on your side as a druid player. But yeah, there's several cards that summon Trents. For example, this 3 mana spell Landscaping summoned 2 2/2 Trents. Unless we see, I guess what we're going to start to see is more cards that specifically react to Trents, which are a druid only character as far as I recall. I don't think you can summon them in any other character class. So we may start seeing more synergy around that idea, which would be fun. Unfortunately, for the big metagame, druid has been one of the top character classes for a while now, so I don't really feel like you should add too much to the druid. If anything, we need to get some of the lesser entertaining and lesser winning hero classes to start winning. Give them some crazy new concepts and try to rebalance it. Ideally, with every expansion, the top 3 character classes would become the bottom 3 character classes, and everything else would move up and cycle of the 9 character classes, so the other 6 would move up. That way there's just always a rotation and some freshness in the game. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 4 health legendary minion called Phlebotomist Floop. I suppose that's how that's supposed to be, like a phlebotomist. While this is in your hand, this is a 3/4 copy of the last minion you played. Well, there's certainly some craziness that you could probably do with that, because I assume it will become a copy of that minion with a 3/4 version of the Lich King, which would have a taunt, and feels like what this would be is a card that's really good for people who play their cards too early and don't hold on to anything, don't hold anything close to their vest. I am a terrible player at particularly that strategy. I love to throw cards out and run out around the 4th or 5th turn. So I could see that, but I imagine the experts are also going to have one specific 7, one specific 8, one specific 9, and one specific 10. Or I assume you could just have one specific 10 and have no 7, 8s, or 9, and this card will still work. And this would be a 4th turn solution to getting very, very specific cards for very, very specific strategies. I imagine we'll see this epic level card used and abused quite often in higher meta play. Epic is of course above rare, and this is the blue is rare cards. Next card, yeah, it goes common, rare, epic, and then legendary. Next minion we have is a 6 mana 3/4, again a 3/4, called the Tending Tauren. Choose one, give your other minions +1/+1, or summon 2 2/2 Trents. Now there is a legendary character that I'm not sure if it's in the wild set now, or if it's still in standard, that makes your choose one cards do both, and that's really the only synergy I've ever seen with the choose one cards. But you really don't even need a synergy with these cards, because just having more options is very, very useful. I've heard other YouTubers and people into Hearthstone saying that the best card in the game is just the coin. Just having more options to play. Being able to potentially draw more cards or play more cards is super, super useful. Next we have a 7 mana, 4 attack, 4 health minion called the Dream Petal Florist. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of a random minion in your hand by 7. Well, let's see. You already see a synergy here with this card. You play this on the 4th turn. Maybe you play something like this or something else, so you have more mana. You play this, let's say you just play it at the 7th turn. Well, you've got an 8, a 9, and a 10 that would become then a 1, a 2, and a 3. Or a 3. Not a ton of health, not a ton of attack, certainly. But you keep this protected with a taunt minion, and even if it survives 2 turns, I think you've gotten quite a lot of value out of it. And then we have an 8 mana minion with 4 attack and 4 health called the Gloop Sprayer. Battlecry, summon a copy of each adjacent minion. That's pretty crazy, and that's just a common card. I could see this being a legendary card, really, because again, if you have the Lich King to the side of you, and you play this on the 9th turn, because the Lich King is, I believe, 8 mana, then you've got 2 Lich Kings. If you have Kel'Thuzad, which is a character that causes all your minions to resummon if they died at the end of the turn. If they died in that turn, they resummon, so you get 1 Kel'Thuzad on the field, and then you make another copy of it. It's practically impossible to ever kill off both Kel'Thuzads. Their health are just too high in the same turn, and if you can get even 1 or 2 taunt minions, it's an impenetrable wall of characters. Finally, we have the 10 mana, 8 attack, 8 health mech. They are getting back into mechs. There really haven't been any mechs since Goblins vs. Gnomes. It felt like the forgotten stepchild of minion classes, but they definitely wanted to introduce them in the reintroduce them in the Boomsday project to make them work with their new magnetism metric, which we didn't see any minions with magnetism in Druid. So I imagine these probably are relatively weak cards, just on that factor. This is a 10 mana, so you could really only play it on the 10th turn or when you have 10 mana. 8 attack, 8 health. It has rush, which means it can attack a minion but not a hero on the first turn. And it costs 1 less for each friendly Trent that died the game. So there's your game ender as far as playing Trents. And all kinds of things would certainly work with this. And you're seeing little bits of synergy. A lot better than the last expansion, Witchwood, where it seemed like cards were just kind of randomly in that way. So if I look at all the Druid cards, there is quite a lot, certainly. There's quite a lot I don't have, too. But I'm trying to find the legendary, and I could probably search for it if I knew the name, but cards have gotten certainly crazy like that. We're not going to get any hero replacements in this expansion, which was fine. It was kind of weird that they had hero replacements for the previous expansion because of the way that worked. Let's see. Yeah, actually what I need to do is just type in the phrase choose one, and perhaps spell it right. Choose. There we go. So these are all the cards with choose one, which would have been a strategy to play, but the card that makes your choose one cards work and do both is in the wild set. So people playing wild are definitely going to have more fun with the choose one strategy. And it probably, here it is, Findrel Staghelm from the Whispers of the Old Gods. Your choose one cards and powers that have both effects combined. This is probably a slightly difficult to program to card, frankly, because of the way they are going to have to constantly program combined effects and what the order of those are. So, yeah, there's only one choose one, so that's definitely not the idea for this. I imagine the idea here is Trent's. Let's see if I spelled that right. Nope, did not. It must have an A in it. Showing off my excellent spelling skills here. So, Trent, add 3 Trents to your hand, summon 2/2 Trents, summon 2/2 Trents for every card they kill, summon 3 2/2 Trents. Interesting, there's like a 3 version and a 2 version of that same card. Transform your mana crystals into 2/2 Trents, recover the mana when they die. So if you played Living Mana with the legendary card that gives you an extra mana for every minion that dies, you've got a combination there that already seems incredibly crazy. You certainly couldn't fill a deck with 30 Trent related cards, however, but you certainly could get this cost of this card down quite a bit. I'm looking really forward to seeing what they decide to do in the top players, the top meta deck cards. And when we get to the neutral cards, I imagine we'll start to see more cards that synergize with just everything. But that's going to be it for the Druid cards. Stay tuned if you're watching live, I suppose. That's it for this recording. As always, I end my recordings the same way. I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, friend me on Steam and gift me a game or gift card, or send me a Steam game code through Twitter direct message. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at the new cards for the next expansion of Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. So to see the cards right now, you go into crafting mode, you click include uncraftable cards, and then you can come over here and click Boomsday to filter down to that. Last recording we looked at the Druid cards, so let's move forward and look at the Hunter cards. Hunter as a class has been alright. It's probably a little bit overpowered, but I don't think it's in the top 3, so I don't think it needs to be nerfed too much with the new cards. The first card we have is a 1 mana common spell, Discover a Secret. The Hunter Secret deck is a pretty obvious and pretty easy deck to make. Hunters have all kinds of secrets. I wouldn't be surprised if he loses a couple of secrets the next time one of the expansion moves to the wild set of cards and gains 3 or 4 in the meantime. Next we have a 2-mana spell called Bomb Toss, deal 2 damage, summon a 0/2 Goblin Bomb. They still have not fixed the way the descriptions work here. They need a second picture of a second card so you see what the 0/2 Goblin Bomb looks like, so you could get a little bit of flavor text and see who the artist is. You just don't ever get that information, sadly. I think this might be new, not yet released. This may have in the past just said uncraftable. Next card we have is a 2-mana spell, Cybertext Chip. Give your minions Death Rattle, add a random mech to your hand. They're bringing back mech minions, that's interesting. We'll see how many actually get added. I don't know how well a mech minion works with a hunter deck though. It's kind of weird, you have 3 spells before we even run into our first minion. First minion is a 2-mana, 2-attack, 1 health minion called the Fireworks Tech. Battlecry, give a friendly mech +1/+1. If it has Death Rattle, trigger it. That will be interesting. This is particularly an interesting card because the new magnetic, what would you call it? Magnetic ability has the ability to give other abilities of a card to another card. So the way it works, if you have a card that is magnetic and it would have a Death Rattle, and you play it to the left of a mech, that card will then merge with the mech and have that Death Rattle. Then, if you played this, you could give that merged new mech creature +1/+1 and activate its Death Rattle. So there's definitely some synergy and combo craziness in a card like this. We'll have to see what magnetic cards we have. Here's one. We'll see in a second. Next we have a 2-mana spell called Goblin Prank. Give a friendly minion +3/+3 in rush. It dies at the end of the turn. This is probably a decent card to play if you have a silence card that you can also play. So it's probably better somewhere around 5th, 6th turn to give something +3/+3 and let it rush and attack and then silence it. You silence it, it loses the +3/+3 and the rush, but it also doesn't die. I'm not sure that's really worth it. Like, I'm thinking the owl is a neutral 2-mana card that can silence a minion. And so you play this on the 4th turn. Yeah, I don't know if there's really a strategy there. It seems like there might be, but it's going to take some experimenting. Next we have a 2-mana, 2-attack, 2-health mech called Venomizer. It's magnetic and poisonous. So, like I said before, if you play this to the left on the board, it is going to merge with a mech if there's a mech directly to the right of it. If you play it on the right of a mech, it just plays normally. It would if it merged as, I imagine, I'm not 100% sure about that. It definitely gives the mech poisonous, but I imagine it also adds the 2-attack and 2-health to the mech, which certainly could be helpful. There is also a slight problem with this mechanic in that it's not really explained, and they were trying to make these things be better explained, where poisonous is pretty obvious, but honestly it should be venomous, not poisonous as the name, but the poisonous is pretty obvious as far as what it is, but the magnetic concept needs to be probably explained in a short sentence, and they probably don't want to do that because they want to keep the words small, word count low. Next card we have is a 3-mana, 2-attack, 2-health mech minion called the Spider Bomb. It's magnetic with a Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. So clearly on the 5th turn you could play this on a mech, and it can magnetize on itself just fine. There's been no indication that if you had a mech on the field that was magnetic and you played a minion to the right of it, that would magnetize. Because then you might have this crazy system where many cards might magnetize to the same one, and that would be insane and fun to do, but it'd also be very hard to predict. Like, I'm imagining if you had 6 magnetic minions on the field and they were all mechs also, and you played a mech on the right, and all 6 of those minions then magnetized to that one mech, that would be kind of crazy and amazing, but yeah, I don't think it's going to work that way. However, it does kind of feel like you would retain magnetic if you played this card to the left of this card, because this card by default already has magnetic. I don't know if retaining magnetic as a name does anything, though. And next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 6 health creature called the Necro Mechanic. Your death rattles triggered twice. There is a wild card that already did this. It was a, I believe, neutral card from a very old expansion. Let's see if I can think which one it was. I think it was Blackrock Mountain. No, it was Nexramus, like the very first expansion. There was a card that had your death rattles trigger twice, and I guess they found a way to introduce that card without also introducing a lot of problems. With Nexramus, that card worked too well because there was 2 legendary characters called Stalag and I don't remember the other guy's name. There was these 2 creatures, and if one of those creatures died and then the other creature died, it summoned Thaddeus, which was like an 11/11 attack minion, and if your death rattle triggers twice, then you have 2 11/11 minions. So in Wild, that still is possible to do, and I imagine you could play this card and those cards from Nexramus and trigger death rattles maybe more than twice, maybe not. It really depends on how the game is programmed. A lot of these mechanics do act a little bit weird or unpredictably just based on how they're programmed. In fact, several of the mechanics are getting changed in this next expansion to be more logical, hopefully. Of course, if you're used to the way the mechanics used to work, then you might be surprised. Most people won't notice the difference, I don't think. Next, we have a 7 mana legendary card minion, 5 attack, 5 health, Boommaster Flark. As a battle cry to summon 4 0/2 golden bombs. This is weird, we're summoning all these golden bombs, and yet there's no card that really works with that. So you could play this card twice and get 2 0/2 golden bombs, and you could play this and get 4 more, so you can have 6 on the field without doing any other card to duplicate those minions. But no clue what a golden bomb is. If I was to guess, it's probably a minion that maybe has taunt, or maybe just when it dies it does somewhere around 4 to 6 damage to a random minion on the enemy side. Maybe just a random minion anywhere. That would be my guess. But no bigger strategy there. It's clearly the synergy is in magnetic cards for the hunter. And that still doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know why I would want to play these new cards versus just playing a secrets deck or a beast deck with the hunter that has already been established and it already works pretty well. Last card we have is an 8-mana spell, Flark's Boomzunka. Summon 3 minions from your deck. They attack enemy minions, then die. This card will work very well with the Savage Hyena, or is it Scavenging Hyena? Yeah. That card will work rather well with that, but I don't know what else it really works with. Generally speaking, the concept of hunter decks is to have a bunch of cheap minions. Yeah, Scavenging Hyena. Whenever a friendly beast dies, gain +2/+1. Yeah, the general concept is to have a bunch of cheap beasts that die, generally trying to improve that. This card, for instance, has Echo, so you can play it multiple times and is a beast, so that might have some value. Again, I'm not really seeing any major improvement or synergy as far as all the standard cards. There's very possibly some wild combinations that will come into the play. Let's see if we can go over to Nixramas cards, and let's see. Geez, was that the only card that came out for Nixramas? Yeah, Nixramas was a weird expansion, giving only one specific card for a class. They went from that to giving everybody about 10 cards. So here it is. Your minions trigger their death rattles twice, Baron Rivendell. And here is Fugan. If Stalag also died in this game, summon Thaddeus. And here is Stalag. If Fugan died in this game, summon Thaddeus. And of course, Kel'Thuzad, certainly always a great card too for the wild set. Sadly, long since past are those old days. So that's it for the Hunter cards. I haven't seen anything so far between the Hunter and the Druid expansion that is superiorly disappointing. I also, though, haven't really seen anything that is amazingly interesting either. Again, I think once we make it to the neutral cards and look at that, that's where we'll start to see the way things are supposed to work together. Probably would have been smart. Next time, I guess I'll look at neutral cards first. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Okay, I'm going to take just a short 1-minute break and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back with another recording of Hearthstone. Today we're looking at the new cards for the expansion of the Boomsday project. So to look at them, you go into crafting mode, you can click include uncrafted cards, you need to do that, and then you click over here and click Boomsday. Theoretically, you could click Boomsday and then click this and this. Either way works. Last time we looked at the hunter cards, this time we're going to look at the mage cards. First card we have is a 1 mana spell, deal 1 damage to a minion and the minions next to it. That is called Shooting Star. This is probably a pretty good card because there is already a standard, I think it's a basic mage card that gets +1 attack every time there's a spell played, so you could see this played very early. If you wait till like the 3rd or 4th turn when there actually are 3 people on the field, you have a good chance of killing at least one, if not all 3 of them. It's not going to change too much if you have spell damage +1 or +2. The whole spell damage plus minions kind of have fallen out of fashion at this point, where yes, they'll increase spell damage, but that's highly unlikely to save you. Ideally, the one thing I want to see happen with the mage deck is the elimination of the Sorcerer Apprentice duplicate plus the Archmage Archidonus, which that is a combination of cards where the Archmage Archidonus gives you a arcane missile every time a spell is played, and the Sorcerer Apprentice reduces the cost of spells like arcane missile so it can be played for free. It means if you can get enough Sorcerer Apprentices on the field, I think it's like 4 or 5, so you have to play some cards and tricks to do that, but it's not too hard, and it's very well known. If you can do that, you can go from being about to lose the game to completely winning the game in 1 turn in a very unfun way. It just feels unfair, and so many people who were playing mage a few months ago were doing that strategy and that strategy only that it was driving me insane more than anything else. Next card we have is a 2 mana spell, Astral Rift. Add 2 random minions to your hand. Mage has several cards about random minions, but I haven't seen a major synergy with them yet. Unlike the thief cards for the rogue, I haven't seen anything that says if this card didn't start in your deck originally, give it +1/+1 or anything like that. Not that I can think of, at least. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 1 health elemental minion called the Celestial Emissary. It has battle cry. The next spell you this turn has spell damage +2. This almost certainly eliminates a lot of the other spell damage plus cards because it is an elemental card which plays to the hero replacement card that gives, if you play the hero replacement card that came out in, I believe, 2 expansions ago, all elementals automatically get lifesteal, so you can definitely play a almost 30 card deck of elementals now. So in general, I think this replaces 2 or 3 different kinds of cards. Next we have a 2 mana spell called the Research Project. Each player draws 2 cards. It's still not a smart move to try to mill or make your opponent run out of cards. I have never seen it effectively executed as a strategy. I feel like, since it's such a pointless strategy anyways, I feel like at this point, if people run out of cards, it should be a case of the game ending in a draw and both players just getting a win. The win ratio in Hearthstone tries to approach 50%. If we could just get it to 75 or higher in the percentage, I think this game would be a lot more fun for your average player who's expecting closer to a 90-95% win ratio. In a single player games, I mean, how often in mini games do you ever die at all? So some games I die once in 60 hours, whereas in Hearthstone you might spend 5 to 10 minutes on a game and then end up losing and feel like you've wasted a lot of time and energy. The other thing is they certainly could just address the fatigue, but I doubt they would ever do this and get rid of fatigue and just have it like Yu-Gi-Oh! At least used to be, where if you run out of cards you lose immediately. Then there would be a real danger of running out of cards. Of course, there's also spells like Dead Man's Hand that allows you to basically have infinite cards and you can't really ever run out. So there would be ways to play around that. Next we have a 3 mana 2 attack 4 health legendary minion called the Stargazer Luna. After you play the rightmost card in your hand, draw a card. This is an interesting gameplay mechanic because it's just nothing I've ever seen before. The rightmost card in your hand will always be the card you drew latest. So whatever is leftmost is the oldest card in your hand. Whatever right is rightmost is the newest card. So if you had this on the field and you played the card that's rightmost, you would draw a new card and then you would have to play that card to continue drawing. What are you particularly drawing for? I'm not really sure. That's where you'd have to really decide what is the synergy here. Is this a card specifically designed to help you get Sorcerer's Apprentices or Archmage Archidonus or the hero replacement card, or I don't even know what else you would really be looking for. But of course, drawing more cards is always helpful. Next we have a 4 mana 4 attack 3 health elemental with spell damage +2. Apparently that's just going to be a standard thing now, where we have minions that just have spell damage +2. Up until this point there's only been minions that have spell damage +1, and I believe one card had spell damage +5 and it was a legendary. This one's called the Cosmic Anomaly. Next we have a 4 mana spell called the Unexpected Results. Summon 2 random 2-cost minions, improved by spell damage. So I don't know what that means. If your spell damage is +1, does that summon a 3-cost minion? 2 random 3-cost minions? This all of a sudden starts to put spell damage in a different light. So let's see, if you had a couple of these played, that would be +4 if you play 2 of these at the same time. And if you had 2 of these on the field, that would be another +4, and that would be 4 minions. So then if you had 2 other minions that were on the field giving you +2, you could get a 2 random 10-cost minions. Of course, the question then, I guess, is how could you fit them on the board? Because if you had 2 of these and 2 of these and 2 other characters, you already have 6 minions on the field, so you'd only really get 1 2-cost minion, 10-cost minion. So you need a 3rd minion with spell damage +2 or something higher, so that you could have 5 minions on the field to give you +10. Well, 2, 4, like 8 plus. Wait, no. Actually, you would, because it starts at 2. I'm doing the math wrong. Just having 2 of these and just having 2 of these on the field would give you 2 random 10-cost minions. I'm not sure. Like, certainly that would be helpful to have 2 random 10-cost minions, but I'm not sure it's that helpful. The randomness destroys any kind of strategy there. There are better ways to play, I believe. Next we have a 6 mana minion that is 3 attack and 3 health. It is called the Meteorologist. Battlecry: for each card in your hand, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. How many cards can you have in your hand is the question. I think you can have like 10 cards in your hand, but I haven't counted specifically. So maybe on the 6th turn you could play this and do maybe 9 damage. I think you almost certainly have to have 6 cards in your hand to play this and for it to be worthwhile, because it is so low on the health and the attack otherwise. But this seems like it works. There's an equivalent spell card that does 4 damage to all minions and freezes them for 7 mana. So this probably is a good card to play the turn before that if you're just playing control and trying to make sure the board is eliminated. On its own, it's kind of weird though. Next we have a 7 mana, 5 attack, 5 health minion called the Astromancer. I'm getting the feeling that a lot of these minions are slightly weaker, but they have more crazy things that they're doing. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't think we need just a basic power creep where every expansion these 7 mana minions do 1 more attack or have 1 more health, or both. I would much prefer new concepts and more interesting gameplay. So Astromancer has a battle cry: summon a random minion with cost equal to your hand size. Again, if you can have 10 minions on your hand, maybe you would summon a 10 cards in your hand. You might summon a 9 mana minion when you play this, because you'd be losing 1 card when you played this. But I don't think you can go much higher than that. There, I believe, is an 11 mana cost minion, and maybe even a 12 cost minion, and I believe there's a 15 cost minion, but there's a gap there right now at least. And then lastly we have a 7 mana legendary spell called Luna's Pocket Galaxy. Change the cost of the minions in your deck to 1. Interesting. Well, certainly you can't argue with a card like this. There's no way this isn't a good card. Reducing the cost to 1 is clearly the right thing to do. So let's see what we can do with standard cards with that mage deck. Let's see, cast 6 spells that didn't start with your deck to take a 2nd turn. Whenever you draw them in, add a copy to your hand. So not a lot of elemental minions added to the mage deck, but still there's enough of them. So you can still play these classic Sorcerer's Apprentice, which I feel like at some point the Sorcerer's Apprentice is going to have to be in some way nerfed, or Archmage Archidonus is going to have to be some way nerfed, because I'm really tired of people playing that strategy alone. There's like no other strategy beyond that. It's just stall until you can get 4 Sorcerer's Apprentices on the field, so that you can then play a Fireball and deal 6 damage for free. And when you have Archmage Archidonus on the field, that helps. It's interesting to look here and see how the gaps are expanding. So this is a 6 mana, do 2 damage to all enemy minions and freeze them. The previous card was, where was it? should be here. Oh, here it is. For each card in your hand, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. So you probably would do more damage here depending on how many minions are on the field. So 2 6-turn stalls to get to the point where Archmage Archidonus is a classic card too. So the strategy that drives me, it's Antonidas. I've been calling him Archidonus, whatever. The strategy still exists, so desperately this needs to get nerfed. I am so tired of playing against this strategy and this strategy alone. The way they get 4 Sorcerer Apprentices is they cast spells that duplicate them. Here's the Flame Strike that does 4 damage to all enemy minions. It doesn't actually freeze them though. And there was a small bit of thought that maybe dragons would become the realm of the mage, but they really haven't been. And this is the hero replacement card, Frostlich Jaina. Summon a 3/6 water elemental. Your elementals now have lifesteal this game. And so we saw 1 more elemental added here. But yeah, you're still totally dealing with the same old strategy. So even in the next expansion, I don't see a way you get around that. Either Sorcerer's Apprentices need to be nerfed, or Archmage Archidonus needs to be nerfed. And I'm not generally a big fan of nerfing cards, but in that case, it has really just ruined the fun against playing something, playing a mage. Maybe, as I've been saying at the end of all of these recordings, there would be a, here's your Mana Worm. Whenever you cast a spell, gain +1 attack. Maybe we'll see some more neutral cards that will synergize more with the mage, but I don't even really need it to do that. Like, until they address Archmage Antonidas and Sorcerer Apprentice as a combo, that is just going to be the only way to play. And frankly, since I'm going to be using HS Replay to help me build my decks, I'm probably going to end up playing that dumb deck also, and it's certainly not going to be fun anytime I do that. Good news is there's usually very few daily quests or requirements that actually have you play as the mage, since the mage is supposed to be the first hero class that everybody plays. It literally is the first one you have to play when you start a new account. But to really have an entire class that is supposedly only for the newest of the new players and then be abandoned is not a good way to deal with your character classes. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. All of that helps me out. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, friend me on Steam, give me a game or a gift card, or send me a Steam code through Twitter direct message. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at the new cards for the next expansion in Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. So to see them, you click on My Collection, you go into crafting mode, go ahead and click Include Uncraftable Cards, and then select over here the Boomsday project. If you weren't in crafting mode, you wouldn't be able to select the Boomsday project. So keep that in mind. Last time we looked at the mage, and while the new cards for mage are perfectly fine, they don't seem amazingly good or amazingly bad, there still is a major problem with playing against mage because of Archmage Antonidas and Sorcerer Apprentices working in synergy so well that you can win the game in one turn, which never feels like a fun and fair way to play the game. Today we're looking at the Paladin cards. I suppose it's worth also mentioning that when the new expansion comes out, I plan to live stream opening at least 150 new packs. No guarantee that it will be 150 packs of the new expansion though, particularly on my Asian and European accounts, which is weird that they break you up between those accounts. There's also a China account that only people in China can reach, so that kind of makes sense, but the other accounts could easily have been merged into one a long time ago. But particularly for those accounts, having just classic cards that won't get moved into Wild after a few years, is a better way to go. And generally speaking, those cards are better than random new expansions, but these cards do look good. Let's start looking. First card we have is a 1-mana spell called the Auto Defense Matrix. It's a secret. When one of your minions is attacked, give it Divine Shield. I can already think of a Paladin creature that gains attack when another minion loses a shield, a Divine Shield, so there's already a synergy there that works pretty well. I'm not sure if there's a daily quest to play Divine Shield minions. If there is, it doesn't pop up very often. But playing Divine Shield minions certainly can be useful as a Paladin. Although right now I'm mostly playing a Paladin Murloc deck. Next we have a 1-mana, 1-attack, 3-health mech that just has magnetic. It's called the Glowtron. So this probably solves the question about whether your attack and health gets added to a magnetic creature that merges with a mech to the right of it on the board. That's how you play magnetic cards. If you play them to the left of a mech, of a second mech, they will merge together and gain the abilities and the attack and health. If you played it to the right of that mech, it would just be 2 separate minions, as usual. But the fact that this is only magnetic with nothing else on it tells me that attack and health also merge. So it's a little bit of a boost, and it certainly gives you options. Play this on the first turn, or you play it later. Frankly, if you had 2 of these in the first 2 turns, you could play one and then merge another copy onto itself. Next we have a 2-mana, 1-attack, 2-health legendary minion called the Crystal Smith Kangor. It has Divine Shield and Lifesteal, and your healing is doubled. There's a handful of healing spells and different ways to heal yourself as a Paladin. It's not specifically as high as like the Priest, which is all around the idea of healing. You might have to be a little careful playing this because it's not got a lot of attack or health, but if you played this, say, late into the game when you're at 8th or 9th turn, and you've got another spell that heals the hero by 5, and you double that and heal by 10, that would be very useful. Also, if you can buff this character and keep him alive for a couple turns, he has lifesteal, so whenever this guy attacks, he would then double his own amount of attack. So he does 1 damage by default. That means you would get 2 healing points after he does that 1 damage. If you buffed him up to like a 5, then it would be doubled to a 10. So clearly you want to buff that character. And buffing characters as a Paladin makes a lot of sense. Next we have a 2-mana spell called Crystallology. Draw 2 1-attack minions from your deck. I could certainly see playing this as the Murloc Paladin, although frankly the current Murloc Paladin deck is so finely tuned that this may not be a good enough card to replace something better. But yeah, Silver Hand Recruits don't generally exist in your deck, so this doesn't work for that, but it would also work for a couple of 1-attack Divine Shield minions if you build your deck specifically that way. There aren't a ton of very specific 1-attack minions that you would try to draw out of your deck, but there's a few. Next we have a 4-mana, 2-attack, 4-health mech called the Annoya module. There was a mech called the Annoyatron that had actually a rather annoying sound when it was played from Goblins vs. Gnomes, so I imagine this is the updated version of that. It has magnetic, which the Annoyatron certainly didn't have, and Divine Shield and Taunt, and I believe the Annoyatron did have Divine Shield and Taunt, so this is almost a direct just replacement of a previous card. And we haven't really seen that so blatantly done. Usually they change the name, they change what class it is in, or change something so it's not so obvious. But yeah, in this case they just kind of blatantly are replacing the Annoyatron. Next we have a 4-mana spell called Prismatic Lens. Draw a minion and a spell from your deck, swap their cost. So here's a thought. You play this on the 4th turn and you have one spell in your deck, only one, and that spell is, let's say, a 10-mana card, 10-mana spell, and then you have a deck full of 1 or 2 mana Murlocs. You could then play that spell for at most 2 mana instead of 10, and that would make this a pretty good 6-turn move, or 4th or 5th turn move, 4th and 5th turn move. So yeah, there's definitely a strategy here, but you're really gonna have to be very, very tight on your build as a paladin. You could only have like one specific spell. Next we have a 5-mana, 0-attack, 5-health mech called the Mechano Egg. It has Death Rattle, summon an 8/8, 8-attack, 8-health Robosaur. I bet the Robosaur is just a beast, or maybe it's a mech. But I bet it doesn't have charge or rush or taunt or divine shield or anything on it. We've seen egg creatures like this, but we haven't seen a 5-mana egg before. Let's see. Yeah, this seems like this would be quite the risk. Of course, you could play some magnetics on it and give it some more health and more attack, but generally speaking you kind of want it to die. So there might be a spell that destroys something with an attack of less than a certain amount. There might be a spell, there are cards that will swap your attack and health, so if you played this and then swapped it, it would be a 5-attack 0 health and immediately die. Here we have the Shrink Ray, 5-mana spell, set the attack and health of all minions to 1. I believe there's already been spells that set the attack of all minions to 1, and already been spells that set the health of all minions to 1. Maybe they're not in the Paladin set, so maybe this is an interesting combination. Otherwise this feels like almost a merging of 2 cards, in the same way that the Annoya module feels like a replacement of one previous card. Let's see. Next we have a 6-mana, 3-attack, 4-health creature called the Glowstone Technician. It has a battle cry to give all minions in your hand +2/+2. Buffing minions, certainly something you'd want to do. If you're playing a Murloc deck, that's rather helpful. If you're playing anything, it's rather helpful. And then we have a 7-mana legendary spell called Kangor's Endless Army. Resurrect 3 friendly mechs. They keep any magnetic upgrades. Which that's kind of weird because then they don't keep other things. Generally speaking, you would assume if you're resurrecting friendly characters, they would have all the buffs and things they had before, but I guess Hearthstone and Blizzard are dancing around that idea, and they haven't quite decided how they want things to work. So with the standard set of cards, do these cards really synergize too much? I'm not saying anything amazingly different. We've still got the same old Divine Shield spells and weapons and Noble Sacrifice, which everybody plays that. Here's a spell to set a minion's attack to 1. Just 1 minions. Cast 6 spells on your minions. Certainly that will synergize with more buff cards. Here's a 1 attack, 1 cost minion with Taunt and Divine Shield. That would work. Change the health of all minions to 1. So that's that card. Change the attack and health of all minions to 3, which could actually be helpful for a lot of your minions. Only your 1 ones. The Sound the Bells is a pretty good card, or at least it has been since it's been introduced. I don't think it's going to change. Blessings of the Kings, probably lesser used these days because it's just a little too expensive. Do 2 damage to all enemies. Yep. I'm just trying to look at all these cards and see if any of them. After a friendly minion loses Divine Shield, gain +2 attack. That synergizes very well with the secret that gives a minion Divine Shield. Transform all 1-cost cards in your deck into legendary minions. So you could play that with a Murloc deck and do some craziness too. Let's see. This is the Shrink Ray that sets the health and attack of all minions. There must be another card in a different class that sets the attack to 1. This one sets all other minions' attack and health to 3. And I'm trying to find the hero replacement card. Set a minion's health and attack to 10. There you go. And this one equips a 5/3 lifesteal weapon and lets you summon the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. If you have all 4, destroy the enemy hero. No real synergy to that, but that certainly is an interesting idea. Now if I go to all the cards though and look at Annoy as the key phrase, we've got the Annoy module, which is a 4-mana 2 attack 4 health mech for Paladin, which is basically just replacing the Annoy Tron, which is a wild card, 2 mana 1 attack 2 health mech with Taunt and Divine Shield. So there is a slight difference there. It's 2 mana more for magnetic and 1 extra attack and 2 extra health. So it's probably a better deal than the Annoyatron. But if you're playing a mech deck, you probably would want to be playing in wild anyways, and so that certainly might affect your decisions. So another 10 cards looked at. Again, once we get down to the neutral cards, there might be some more things that make more sense. But generally speaking, a specific Paladin strategy seems to only work on existing strategies. Maybe a little bit of magnetic strategies are getting added. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. When you subscribe, click the notification bell. If you want a friend or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, or Facebook, all of those links are down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, friend me on Steam and give me a game or a gift card, or send me a Steam game code through Twitter direct message. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. You know you've been talking too long when your teeth start hurting. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at the new cards from the next expansion on Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. To see them, you need to go into crafting mode, click this include uncraftable cards because they're not out quite yet, and then come over here and select Boomsday to filter down. Last time we looked at the Paladin class, this time let's look at the Priest class. So our first card we have is a 0 mana spell called Topsy Turvy. Swap a minion's attack and health. Always useful card if you have something with 0 attack, because if you swap that around then you'll have 0 health and die, and for 0 mana that certainly seems like that's opening a lot of possibilities. I don't know if there's specifically any priest cards that's going to work with, but we shall see. Next we have a 1 mana 0 attack 2 health minion called the Test Subject. It has a death rattle. Return any spells you cast on this minion to your hand. So theoretically, depending on how this works, if you played this guy and then played this on this guy, he would die and give you back the spell. I don't know what that really would achieve per se, but it seems like that's something that could happen. Generally speaking, I imagine the Test Subject is supposed to be a minion that you play on the first turn, and then on the second and third turn you buff him up so he has some attack and some health, and then eventually something kills him. There is an opening here where if you had a death rattle duplicator in wild, I don't think you can do this in standard play, but if you had Baron Rivendell, I believe is the card, to double your death rattle, then you could get twice as many buff cards or spells you've cast on this card, which might be helpful to some strategy, but I'm still not sure what strategy. It depends on what spell cards you have and how helpful they would be. Next we have a 2 mana spell called the Cloning Device. Discover a copy of a minion in your opponent's deck. This is generally one of these cards that is too random to be useful. You really never know what's going to be in your opponent's deck. You might be playing against somebody who's never played Hearthstone before, or you might be playing against somebody who's a pro, and even if you are playing against somebody who's a pro, they might be playing such specific decks that their cards in your deck don't even help that much. So there's almost certainly better cards than this that you could put in your deck. Next we have a 2 mana 2 attack 1 health mech minion called the Dead Ringer. It has a death rattle. Draw a death rattle minion from your deck. Again, Baron Rivendell, double this, you get 2 death rattle minions. It seems like the priest could probably make a very good wild death rattle deck the way this is going. Standard wise, I guess you kind of need to figure out what specific death rattle minion you would be looking for. There certainly are some death rattle taunt minions that will deal some damage to everybody when they die. It's for a board clear, but that's about all I can think of. Next we have a 3 mana spell called Extra Arms. Give a minion +2/+2. Add more arms to your hand that gives +2/+2. So this, the way this is phrased, it doesn't seem like this is an echo card. So it feels like on the 6th turn you could play this and give something like this +2/+2. Then play the More Arms card for +2/+2 and make it a 4/6. But then I think that's all you can do. And then when this guy dies, you would get back the Extra Arms and More Arms, both 3 mana spells that you can play again. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 4 health minion called the Omega Medic. Battlecry: if you have 10 mana crystals, restore 10 health to your hero. So this is part of the Omega class characters that they're introducing, and take note, there has not been an Omega class character for the first 4 on this line. We have not seen anything that's anywhere close to this. So if you have 10 mana crystals, so basically if you're at the 10th turn, because it's rather hard as a priest to get more mana crystals, it's not as easy as a druid would be able to do that, you can play this and restore 10 health to your hero, and then otherwise this is just a decent 3 mana minion if you can't activate that Battlecry. There is a Battlecry doubler. Maybe it's in Wild now, so you could potentially have 10 mana crystals and restore 20 health to you. But without cards that increase the number of mana crystals earlier, this card doesn't feel like it's playing a significant role in any strategy. If you make it to the 10th turn and you don't have any strategy other than that, you just aren't playing well. Next we have a 5 mana spell, Power Word Replicate. There's several previous Power Word cards, so they're expanding that theory. Although there's been no synergy between Power Word cards, so nothing that buffs Power Word cards or summons them or draws them out of the deck or anything like that. This spell is choose a friendly minion, summon a 5/5 copy of it. So if I chose this and played this on it, then I'd get a 5/5 copy of this that then would, when both of them died, give me 2 copies of this. So maybe you could go down the line and eventually have 7 of these minions on your field, each with 5/5 attack, except for the original one, which would be a 0/2, and then you could have a bunch of these. But that'd be a lot of work to achieve moderate success. Next we have a 5 mana, 4 attack, 6 health minion called the Reckless Experimenter. Death Rattle minions you play cost 3 less but die at the end of the turn. Immediately you're seeing a brand new concept here that really brings Death Rattle cards into play a lot more. Like, you definitely could make a wild deck full of Death Rattle cards in Baron Rivendell and win in probably less than 5 turns very consistently. That's a really crazy card, but I think it's also a pretty safe card in Standard because you're not going to get too many Death Rattle minions and you're not going to be able to duplicate them. Next we have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health legendary minion called Xeric Master Cloner. Death Rattle: if you've cast any spells on this minion, resummon it. So inherently, if you played this and then played this, so play this on the 6th turn, play this on the 7th turn, you would have 2 of these, and they both theoretically should resummon if they die, because they both should have that satisfied if you've cast any spells on this minion state. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe the new clone of this wouldn't resummon itself. That would be an interesting experiment to see, but it's going to be really difficult to figure that one out until we see more people playing it. As something like Disguised Toast will experiment with, I'm sure. And then finally we have a 9-mana legendary spell called Zarek's Cloning Gallery. Summon a 1/1 copy of each minion in your deck. I don't know what you'd really get out of this. You can only have 7 minions on the field. So you're definitely going to have a lot of minions that are going to try to summon and not summon. There is a thought, I guess, if you had a Jade Druid in your deck and you tried to summon it, this card might buff up Jade Druids quite a bit, but maybe not. That's the question, because Jade Druids are +1 attack and +1 health versus the last time it was summoned. So originally the first Jade Druid you play in a game will be a 1/1, the next Jade Druid you play will be a 2/2. Even if you have a full field, if you play a card that summons another Jade Druid, it still will move that counter up. So theoretically, if you had several Jade Druids in your deck, which would be hard to achieve, and then you played this, you might get some better cards. Otherwise, I don't know what this works with. I don't know what this would synergize with. Again, we're at a position where these cards aren't bad, and they might synergize better with neutral cards, but I'm not 100% sure that they really replace too much compared to the existing meta decks. Let's see. What were these called? Quest cards? The quest card is to summon 7 Death Rattle minions, so that certainly synergizes with a Death Rattle deck. We've got a lot of healing, a lot of card that reduces spell damage. We've got cards that buff your minion but wouldn't be considered a spell. The standard way to play the priest is to double the health of a minion, then double it again, and then play a spell that would set the attack equal to the health. Or you double the health of a light spawn to make it a 10, then double it again and you have a 20. Generally speaking, that's as far as they want to go, is to give you a minion that you can work towards being a 20. They don't want minions, I think, that can do the full 30 damage in one turn. Let's see, cast Inner Fire on every minion in your deck. Set attack equal to health. I don't know why you would want to play that card. I don't even own it, so it wouldn't be really a big deal. This doubles the damage and healing of your spells and hero powers. Shuffle a copy of your opponent's deck into your deck. Shuffle all minions into your opponent's deck. Your opponent takes 2 turns, then you take 2 turns. That was a crazy card. The hero replacement destroys all minions with 5 or more attack, which I guess something like this might work around that. This is particularly a alright card, I guess. No, this isn't the card I'm even thinking of. Let's see. If we compare it to priest cards just in the wild collection, is there something more? I don't know if there really is. Deal damage to each minion equal to its attack. Doesn't really do anything more. You have these naughty tentacles, power word tentacles. They give you +2/+6. They're wild. Yeah, definitely more than the previous expansions. This is a nice card to play wild, and whenever you heal a creature, it gets +2 attack. Yeah, more than any of the previous expansions, this has just been a expansion that seems a little bit more just random. Perhaps that's because the priest only needed a little bit of help and they didn't want to add a lot of synergies. I believe the Spiteful Summoner meta deck is made to be played with the priest, and it's what I'm playing right now, and it's, I think, one of the best decks in the metagame right now in total. So yeah, that might certainly explain why none of these cards seem to synergize even as much as the previous expansions. But definitely some interesting cards nonetheless. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at the new cards for the next expansion in Hearthstone, known as the Boomsday project. So to see the new cards, you go into crafting mode, you click include uncraftable cards, and then you come over here and select Boomsday. Last time we looked at the priest cards, and I was left a little bit more bemused with the additions in the priest expansion compared to the previous 4 characters, but today we're going to look at the rogue cards. I would imagine, if I was to argue it, the rogue, the shaman is how you pronounce it, the warlock, and the warrior, I imagine everything except for the warlock are the bottom 3 classes that are played right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see better cards and more help happening up. I would say the warrior is probably in the middle somewhere. Let's see, are we at the right place? Yes, we are. First card is a 2 mana, 3 attack, 2 health minion called Lab Recruit. As a battle cry, shuffle 3 copies of a friendly minion into your deck. For the rogue, that's probably not terrible, but here's what I'm thinking. If you're playing wild and you have the pirate parrot card, I don't know what the actual name of it is, that card I believe automatically is summoned to the field when you play a pirate. So if you played a 1 mana pirate and then that summoned the parrot, and then you shuffled 3 copies of that parrot back into your deck, and then you played another pirate, you've got 4 parrots on the field in really short amount of time. Not sure that there's any other card that specifically synergizes with this card. Certainly there are other ideas to shuffle 3 copies of a friendly minion into your deck, but you'd have to work around whatever concept you're working with there. Next we have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 1 health mech minion called the Pogo Hopper. Battlecry gain +2/+2 for each other Pogo Hopper you played this game. So we're seeing a strategy here where if we played this on the second turn and then played this and put 3 copies in the field, we could then play another 4 cards minimum. Actually, if we played this twice, we could play as many as 7 copies of this, each getting bigger and bigger. So 7 times 2, you could have a 15/15 Pogo Hopper just by having these 2 cards and 2 copies of this card and 2 copies of this card on the field. Probably still would want a little bit of help to summon and draw all of those cards onto the field though. Next we have the first weapon in the new expansion that we've seen, which is not super surprising because weapons have always been a mess with Hearthstone. The concept really needs some major help, and I think they finally resolved to just kind of nerf and put most of the weapons into wild and try to start over from scratch. So maybe this is the beginning of a new day for weapons. It's a 3 mana, 3 attack, 2 durability weapon called the Necrium Blade. Death Rattle, trigger the death rattle of a random friendly minion. It's a decent card as a weapon, I would say, but I don't see a strategy quite yet that you would want to trigger a death rattle on a rogue minion. But certainly it seems like death rattle cards are coming back into vogue with this expansion, because I've already seen other character classes that, particularly if you're playing in Wild and using Baron Rivendell, which doubles your death rattle effects, you can do some really crazy things. Next spell we have is a 3 mana spell called Violet Haze. Add 2 random death rattle cards to your hand. So, yep. I'm assuming that when you're playing Standard, you only get 2 random Standard death rattle cards. I don't think you're going to get Fugen or Stalag from a card like this. Maybe if you're playing in Wild you could get those cards, but maybe not. That's some of the programming that happens in the background with Hearthstone that doesn't usually get explained ever, or it takes a lot of experimentation and third parties to figure it out. Next we have a 4 mana spell called the Academic Espionage. What is this? Oh, this is a spell book. I thought this was a pizza box. Shuffle 10 cards from your opponent's class into your deck. They now cost 1 mana. I don't see how this could be a bad card, honestly. If you're playing against almost anybody, even if they're a terrible player, having 10 1 mana cards in your deck and basically being guaranteed that you won't run out of cards before your opponent does, seems like a really good card to play. And you could play it twice and have 20 extra cards that cost 1 mana. Next we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 4 health mech minion called the Blight Nozzle Crawler. Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 ooze with poisonous and rush. So yeah, that's pretty good. Like that makes sense. This minion dies trying to kill something. You have a 1/1 ooze that can kill something else. Maybe there's a spell out there that could duplicate your 1/1 oozes. That's what I'd be trying to keep an eye out for, is can I get more than one of these in standard play. Of course there are going to be a lot of scenarios where this guy doesn't die, or this guy dies and there's just nothing the 1/1 ooze can attack, so rush is pointless. Well, this guy dies on your opponent's turn, and they kill the 1/1 ooze to protect themselves. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to play around that card. Next we have a 5 mana, 4 attack, 4 health creature called the Crazed Chemist. It is a combo card, combo being a specific key phrase only for Rogue. It's a little surprising we're getting more combo cards, but there is a daily quest to do combo cards too. One of the things I'd love to see in the next expansion is daily quests getting revamped in a completely different way. I understand that daily quests are built around the idea of logging in every day, and I'm fine with that, but when you make me log in every day, theoretically, and then play 30 minutes to 3 hours of gameplay, you're taking too much of my time away, frankly. I've got other games that I pre-record on my channel, and Hearthstone in particular has become very burdensome for the amount of time it takes to maintain the 3 different accounts I have, the America's account and European account and Asian accounts. So yeah, I'd really love to see the combo system become a daily login reward system, or perhaps just allow me to sit on 5 daily quests instead of having at max 3, so I could come back less often instead of having to come and stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Although frankly, since I'm covering video game news when I'm playing Hearthstone anyways, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday sort of works. But I'm getting off topic. That was a 5 mana, 4 attack, 4 health Crazed Chemist combo. Give a friendly minion plus 4 attack. So you'd want to play this like on the 6th turn, where you could play a 1 mana minion and then give that minion plus 4 attack. Next we have a 5 mana, 4 attack, 2 health legendary minion called Myra Rotspring. Battlecry, discover a death rattle minion. Also gain its death rattle. So on the face of it, this looks like a really good card, but it probably isn't. It's random. Whenever you use the discover key phrase, you're just given 3 random cards from some pool. Sometimes the pool is just all the random cards you could ever have played. Sometimes the pool is limited more, it seems like. But the likelihood you would get a really, really good death rattle when playing this is rather low. Ideally, I think there's a card that would give you 10 mana crystals or refresh 10 mana crystals on a death rattle. That would be something you would want to get with this. Highly unlikely that's going to happen. You're going to get things that either summon a 2/2 Trent or in some other way do something very small. So I don't think I'd play Myra Rotspring, even though it's a legendary. Next we have a 5 mana legendary spell called Myra's Unstable Element. Draw the rest of your deck. That is certainly crazy. So my running theory is you can have 10 cards in your hand at one time. I don't know if that's really the amount. It might be slightly more, it might be slightly less. If you had 10 cards left in your deck and you had nothing in your hand except for this, and you played this on the 5th turn, then you draw those remaining cards. You'd start taking fatigue for every turn after that. What is the strategy there? The rest of your deck has to then be full of cards that synergize very, very well. And if your cards do synergize very well, it's unlikely that you would need to draw them all at one time. This feels like a very desperate play to do. And unless there's a minion, there might be a minion that gains +1 attack for every card you draw. So maybe that would synergize with this. So you're drawing the rest of your deck and thus buffing this one minion for a 1-turn kill. I guess that would work. But for most people, I think this will be an overused and improperly used card. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, which has the, what is it? Exodia cards. There's these 5 cards in the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. Exodia, the Forbidden One, I believe is its name. That if you have all 5 of those cards in your hand and you show it to your opponent, you automatically win the game. Or at least that's sometimes how the rules are applied. The rules in Yu-Gi-Oh were written as they were going and making the anime, so who knows how it plays now. If you had a cards set like that, this would be an amazing synergy card. This would be like way too overpowered. I don't think we're ever going to get a card set like that though. The closest we have is the hero replacement tool for I believe the paladin that summons the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse through the hero ability. But that's kind of it. Final card we have is a 5-mana spell called Necreum Vial. Trigger friendly minions death rattle twice. So we do have for the rogue a death rattle doubler. Playing in wild with Baron Rivendell, you could then theoretically maybe quadruple that effect. But much like the expansion for the priest, I'm mostly less bemused on these cards. I think these first 2 are the most interesting, where the rest of these I've kind of already forgotten about. Just death rattle, death rattle, death rattle. This one's pretty good. 1 more combo card to do the combo daily thing, daily quest. That's kind of it. Let's look at rogue cards, however, in wild, and see if there's really a synergy there. I think in wild, particularly, you still could play combos and pirates and do a lot of different things. You've got the Doomerang, that's a standard card. You could return cards to your hand. You can get more coins. There's some mechs that can be played. Not that there really were any more mechs. You could play Gang Up, which adds 3 more copies for the Pogo character. You could go for the Jade Golem concept. Definitely, you could try that. There's just a lot of wild cards that you'd have to consider if you're playing in wild that might help, but they honestly may not. Heroes Vanish, return all minions to the owner's hand. Let's see. Gain stealth until your next turn, and then during your turn it adds a shadow reflection to your hand, which lets you play the same card twice. For the hero replacement card, and let's look at just standard cards. Just playing standard cards, you're definitely limited. Play 5 minions with the same name to get Crystal Core, and Crystal Core makes all minions have +5/+5. No, have a 5 attack and 5 health. So I could certainly see playing Crystal Core with the Pogo bunnies. What were they? Certainly that would help to get the quest card done. Yeah, Pogo hoppers. Yeah, I could certainly see how you could try to get 5 of those on the field. But then when Crystal Core gets played, they would lose their buffs. So it still doesn't synergize as well as you would like. Let's see. Trying to see what else would work here. You definitely still have some weapons. There may be a daily quest to play weapons, but I don't see it very often. I've yet to really see a card in the expansion that I just absolutely have to have. If anything, it will probably be a neutral card if I do find anything like that. But yeah, I'm mostly still left with just the general inklings, a tingle of a thought in my brain. Replay every card from another class you played this game. Targets are chosen randomly. Maybe that would work with something, but I don't think it does. Alright, well that's Rogue. We've got 3 more character classes to cover, and then we'll look at the neutral cards. I really should have looked at the neutral cards first. But that probably would only add to the amount of time it takes to look through all these cards, and which it's certainly a long process looking at all the cards and just thinking about them, but at the very least it gives me some ideas. It's questionable how many decks I'm going to build from scratch and that will be my concepts versus how many decks I'm going to build just using hsreplay.net. I think I probably, when I do the 150 plus card pack opening when the expansion comes out and get cards, I will build deck rebuilds just from scratch as my own idea, but then off screen I'll probably replace a lot of those with hsreplay.net decks, or probably I'll play the new decks that I build for a week or two and then decide to switch over to something that's more likely to succeed. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe. When you subscribe, click the notification bell, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, and I definitely could use it, I'm asking people to friend me on Steam and gift me a game or a gift card. There's a wish list there that I have of all kinds of games at all kinds of different prices. Right now a lot of board games are on sale on Steam, so certainly some interesting picks there, like Tabletop Simulator probably being the default one to pick up. That's it for this recording. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at the new expansion for Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. So we can look at the cards if we go over to the collection and click crafting mode, and then include uncrafted cards, and then come over here to filter to Boomsday. And last time we looked at the Rogue card, both the Rogue and the Priest cards seem to not really synergize, which I guess tells me that the Rogue and Priest cards were pretty good character classes already, so they didn't need a lot of help. So now we're going to do the Shaman, which is pronounced Shaman, not Shaman. I looked it up. So let's look at the cards. First one we have is a 0 mana spell. It's a common spell called Beakered Lightning, which I guess is the idea of bottled lightning. I don't know why you specifically need to change the name there. I know several of the game's names are changed to either be funny or just to avoid copyright, but I seriously doubt that bottled lightning is like owned by Magic the Gathering or something, and you can't have a bottled lightning card. There's some weirdness there because I believe some of the employees who worked on Magic the Gathering have now moved on to Hearthstone. And Hearthstone does have a more family-friendly appeal to that. Don't get me talking about the nude mod. So it's a 0 mana spell, deal 1 damage to all minions, overload 2. So overload is a special keys phrase for the shaman. There are cards that benefit from overloading, but at the expense of locking mana crystals. So you play this on your second turn, and then on your third turn you'll only be able to play 1 mana crystal at all. If you play this on your first turn, on your second turn you won't be able to play anything that costs any mana. So generally speaking, these cards need to be played a little later than they would seem like it. Even though this is a 0 mana spell, you'd probably want to play it somewhere closer to the 3rd or 4th turn to do more damage to multiple minions, and because you would want to have some minions that benefit from overloading. Let's see, next we have a 1 mana spell called the Voltaic Burst that is summon 2 1/1 sparks with rush, overload 1. Rush means they can attack a minion but not the hero in the turn that they've been summoned. Again, this is later than it seems. You really wouldn't want to play this on the first turn, because you're not likely to have 2 minions on the field that you need to rush and attack, or 1 minion on the field that has 2 health that you would want to rush and attack. And yeah, it's interesting they're adding more overload cards. Maybe some of the older overload cards are going in the wild, so they're just replacing, or maybe they just want to make it easier to make an overload deck. I don't see a lot of people playing overload decks, so clearly it's not an overpowered strategy right now. Next we have a 2 mana spell called Elementary Reaction. Draw a card, copy it if you've played an elemental last turn. So definitely you could make an elemental deck for Shaman, so this would synergize with that. I guess it would duplicate your card pretty cheaply. You wouldn't really know what card you're duplicating though, so this probably has less value than you would think. You probably could do better with just more elemental minions in your deck, which is exactly what this is. A 2 mana 2 attack 2 health elemental minion called Menacing Nimbus. Nimbus being the name of the cloud that the Monkey King flew on, also being the name of the cloud that Goku from Dragon Ball flew on, because Dragon Ball is based on the Monkey King myth. Battlecry, add a random elemental to your hand. Random elemental to your hand's not a terrible thought, but it's a little random. Certainly, it's not the tightest, best strategy you could think of. A lot of times though in Hearthstone, it's just, do you have a better card or do you not? If you have a better card, play it in your deck. If you don't, live with what you've got. Or pay to win and buy a bunch of packs, and I do not recommend that. As somebody who has been, I believe, 100% free to play in this game, I may have bought a welcome bundle on my main account. That is the only money I've ever spent on this after years and years of playing the game, and I think that's probably all it really deserves. Next we have a 2 mana 2 attack 3 health attack minion called Omega Mind. This is the second Omega class character we've seen, so it seems like there's only going to be 2 or 3 specifically in this expansion, which almost certainly means that there needs to be an Omega class character introduced in the next expansion for all the heroes that didn't get one in this expansion, which isn't a terrible idea to stretch out expansion ideas across 2 or 3 expansions, although that's gonna fall apart when those cards start falling into the wild sets in a few years. Omega Mind has a battle cry. If you have 10 mana crystals, your spell will have lifesteal this turn. This is a really weird card, because that pretty much only means cards that do damage. Like, because if you have a spell that draws a card, it's not going to give you life because you drew a card. If you have a spell that does anything other than cause damage, it's not going to give you lifesteal. You're not going to be able to heal yourself and then do that. And I'm not sure how good this card really is, frankly, because I'm going to have to find a spell that really is worth casting. Because you'd have to play this on the 10th turn, then you'd have 8 mana to spare. I don't know what cards work with that really well. Anyways, moving on, we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health elemental minion called Electra Storm Surge. Battlecry, your next spell this turn casts twice. So I guess you have potentially a synergy here, where if you play this and this, then you have 5 mana to cast a spell. But what 5 mana spell? Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 4 health elemental. It seems like we're getting all elementals. They're definitely filling out elementals with the Shaman class, and that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of weird elementals weren't specifically limited to the Shaman class and the Mage class, but they tried something like that in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, where specific cards could only be played in certain categories of 3 of the 9 character classes. Seemed like it was just too complicated of a concept to keep up. So yes, 4 mana, 3 attack, 4 health elemental Storm Chaser. Battlecry, draw a spell from your deck that costs 5 or more. This card would not synergize with playing this and this at the same turn. In fact, it wouldn't even synergize with this, because by the time you played this and this, you would only have 3 mana anyways. So you'd practically have to play this on the 9th turn and hope you get just a 5 mana spell. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 5 health elemental minion called Thunderhead. After you play a card with Overload, summon 2 1/1 Sparks with Rush. This is an excellent card. Very, very good for an Overload deck. And if I'm not playing a Murloc deck with the Shaman, I'm probably just playing an Overload deck with the Shaman. I don't have any special affinity to want to play them otherwise. Next we have a 6 mana spell called Eureka. Summon a copy of a random minion from your hand. That might be good. You could certainly manipulate your hand so there's only like a 10 mana minion in your hand, and then you play this for 6 and save yourself 4 mana. But I think more often than not, this is a card that doesn't have enough value to be in a deck. And then finally we have a 7 mana legendary spell, the Stormbringer. Transform your minions into random legendary minions. And I definitely could see this working with a Murloc deck. A bunch of really cheap Murlocs getting turned into legendary minions might be a good idea. Maybe not. So how does this synergize with the standard deck? Your quest is to summon 10 Murlocs to get Megafins, so pretty much you're playing a Murloc deck on that. Didn't see really anything to promote playing a Murloc. I don't think that card helps, but the Overload card might. These Flame Tongue Totems are still pretty good. You could certainly make an elemental deck, but I don't have any previous cards that really synergize with elementals. this spell cast twice. So the real question is, well, first there's the Unbound Elemental. Whenever you play an Overload, gain +1/+1. So this definitely is a linchpin of the Overload day. But coming over here, the next spell you cast twice could be this, Bloodlust. Bloodlust being a very good card. So then that would give all the minions on your field +6 for this turn. Okay. And that's in connection with, let's see, this card. Which I assume, since, yeah, this is a legendary, so you could only play it once anyways. And in connection with this card, your spell has lifesteal. No, Bloodlust does not work with that. So what cards would make sense at the 5th level? Deal 15 damage, randomly split amongst all other minions, all minions. Yeah, that would give you lifesteal and heal you, but it wouldn't kill the enemy hero. This hero replacement character doesn't really do anything. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there is a spell that makes sense. And unless I'm forgetting one, I don't believe there's any neutral spells in the game at all. Deal 3 damage to all minions. After you play a minion, add a random shaman spell to your hand. So yeah, this one is a good Overload card too, a pretty decent one. So it'd have to be a 4 mana or less spell, and while Lightning Storm is a fine spell, it's not damage to the hero. We have this, deal 5 damage, Overload. So, best case scenario, you play the Mega to give this card lifesteal. You play the other card to have it activate twice. It attacks the hero, does 10 damage, and you get 10 healing. And that is an 8th turn. No, it's still a 10th or 10th turn play because you have to have 10 mana crystals. That just doesn't really synergize as a concept. Yes, once again, I like the previous 2 characters. These cards aren't feeling like they're doing too much different. And if you look at the wild cards, not too much changes. You have more cards that synergize with Overload. You have more spells that might work. Some more Murlocs. Maybe some more mechs. Not that there were even any. I don't think there were any magnetic cards or mech related things in this new expansion. Anyways. Let's see. Here you have whenever your spells deal damage, restore that much health to your hero. So you could potentially play that with the lifesteal Omega card and double your health that way, but you're still very much limited on finding cards that actually deal damage. And Shaman just doesn't seem to have any. Not at the higher levels anyways. Alright, well, we've got 2 more character classes to go, and then the neutral cards, and the neutral cards are certainly going to be a long experience. Once again, seems like small incremental steps forwards as far as cards, just filling in gaps, if even doing that much. They certainly seem like they're committed to adding 10 specific character class cards for every character class, and that's probably all they're really doing for a lot of cards. I imagine a lot of these could be neutral. It's questionable whether we need any character class cards. If they really thought about it, I wouldn't be upset if they put 50-60% of all the character class cards in the neutral category and just let you play with them anywhere. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. When you subscribe, click the notification bell. If you want to friend or follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, all of those links are down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, friend me on Steam and gift me a game or a gift card. You can look at my wish list to see some games that I'm thinking about covering. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at the new cards for the next expansion in Hearthstone called the Boomsday project. So to look at them, you click on my collection, you click over here to go into crafting mode, and you click over here to include uncrafted cards. Then you click over here to filter down to the standard set that's coming, Boomsday. So last time we looked at the Shaman deck, and much like the Rogue and the Priest deck, it feels like it's small incremental additions and not great massive changes to the types of decks you could play or the types of cards that are available to you. Today we're going to be looking at the Warlock deck. I would say that the Warlock deck is probably one of the worst character classes to play. So if they could make it one of the best, that would be amazing. Theoretically, the Warlock is good because you can draw cards faster and play more cards, but it requires a very delicate and careful way of playing so that you don't constantly reduce your health to the point where you die. And for the most part, when I play Warlock, I do end up helping my opponent more than hurting them, just by drawing more cards and hurting myself. First card we have for the new expansion is a 1-mana spell called Soul Infusion. Give the leftmost minion in your hand +2/+2. That is an interesting idea because we've seen a card that said if you play the rightmost card, you can draw a new card. Which, when you draw cards, the new card you drew would have become the new rightmost card. So theoretically, if you're willing to just play whatever you draw with that card, you could keep on drawing. Here it's saying give the card that's to the left +2/+2, which is your oldest card, the card that has been in your hand for the longest amount of time. That's an interesting idea. There's no mechanic for moving cards in your hand or anything like that. This is one of the few benefits that is obvious about collectible card games, besides some basic things like your cards never get scratched or stolen, and unless your account gets stolen. But still, this is an interesting idea. Most of the Warlock cards are demon cards that damage you when they're summoned or do something else crazy. So we'll keep an eye out to see how many of these new cards are actually demon cards. Next we have a 1-mana legendary spell called the Solarium. draw 3 cards at the end of your turn, discard them. Now there is a legendary card that will, I believe, gain attack for every card discarded in the game up until that point. And it has in the past felt like you could make an awesome discard deck, but I've never been able to get that card because it's a legendary and I just don't have it. And without that one linchpin of a card, something like this doesn't make sense. There are some other cards that will have you draw cards every time you discard a card, so you could draw 3 cards and then discard, draw more cards at the end of your turn. So theoretically you could draw as many as 6 cards for free. It's kind of questionable why this is even a legendary. It seems like you could probably do it twice and still not really accomplish much. We'll have to see what other cards are available that makes that make more sense. Next we have a 2-mana spell called Demonic Project. Each player transforms a random minion in their hand into a demon. For a Warlock, I don't see how this really helps anything. So this almost certainly seems like a dud card. I don't see any reason why you'd have this in your deck if you could play anything better. Because it's random and it helps both players equally and it just wastes 2 of your mana. Next we have a 2-mana spell called Spirit Bomb. Deal 4 damage to a minion and your hero. This is a typical Warlock card. You have to hurt yourself to hurt somebody else. Not terrible because it does do 4 damage to a minion, but not great because it's also doing 4 damage to you. Generally speaking, a lot of cards like this just push people, and me in particular, to just not play the Warlock. If you could play a different class and have a better experience. Next we have a 2-mana, 2-attack, 2-health minion that's the Demon class, which is specific to, I think, Warlock. I don't think there are any demons in the neutral class, but maybe there are a couple. But I doubt there's any cards that synergize with demons in any of the other classes. It's called the Void Analyst. It has a death rattle to give all demons in your hand +1/+1. We've seen some of the previous character classes have a emphasis on death rattle cards, to the point if you're playing wild and you have Baron Rivendell, you could duplicate death rattles, and in this case you'd give all the demons in your hand +2/+2. It's still probably not as good as an equivalent Paladin card. I'm pretty sure you could find a Paladin card that would give all minions in your hand, not just demons +1/+1. Generally speaking though, I guess if you just need to play demons, this is a pretty good demon to play. There is some weirdness, if I can go on a tangent though, with the way demons are depicted in Hearthstone, because for the most part they're depicted as imps and very non-humanoid characters. So the fact that this is a female demon, this might very well be the first female humanoid demon. Well, there is the succubus character, but yeah, I guess that already existed. But usually speaking, you're looking at imps like this, or Draxus. Next we have a 3-mana, 2-attack, 2-health demon called the Doubling Imp. Battlecry, summon a copy of this minion, which for 3 mana that you're effectively getting 2 2/2s. Not terrible. Actually, it's a pretty good card because it's just not hurting you when you're playing it. So for 3 mana you get 2 of them and you don't take any damage, and for that alone I like that card more than most Warlock cards. Next we have a 3-mana, 1-attack, 5-health demon called the Nether Soul Buster. Battlecry, gain +1 attack for each damage your hero has taken this turn. Even in this case, I don't think you're going to get much of an improvement. Like, if you play this on the 10th turn and you manage to do, let's say, even 11 attack damage to yourself, it's still not a one-turn kill. I believe there's a card in Wild that will double your battle cries, but I don't think it's in Standard, so this would be a card that would definitely work better if the battle cry happened twice, and you could get it to a say 11-5. Next we have, I believe, our third Omega character, a 5 mana, 4 attack, 5 health minion called Omega Agent. If you have 10 mana crystals, summon 2 copies of this minion. That's kind of a letdown for what it is. Like, the other 2 Omega characters seemed like they did a little bit more than just summoning 2 copies of them. So theoretically on your 10th turn you play this and you then have 2 4/5s. It is an epic, so theoretically you could have 2 of these. So on your 10th turn you play this twice and you have 4 4/5s. I guess that kind of is a good board filler, but it sure isn't an interesting way to play. There's really nothing interesting there. Next we have a 6 mana spell called Ectomancy. Summon copies of all the demons you control, which you can only have 7 minions, so at best you're summoning copies of 3 minions onto the field, and they're gonna be summoning copies of 3 demons. That's not really that good. And then we have an 8 mana, 5 attack, 5 health legendary minion called Dr. Morgan that swaps this with a minion from your deck when it dies. And I suppose if you could get 2 of these in your deck and they were the only 2 minions in your deck, then they would constantly be swapping back and forth, but that's highly unlikely to happen and not really that useful even then. So let's switch over to the wild cards, and like, I don't even know what cards would really synergize with this. You've got the hero replacement, Blood Reaver Gul'dan. Summon all the friendly demons that died this game. You've got Mal'Ganis. Your hero is immune and your demons have +2/+2 in wild. You have destroy your hero and replace him with Lord Jaraxxus. Let's see, if your deck has no duplicates, summon all the demons from your hand. Yeah, you could play a wild demon deck, but a lot of these don't make sense. This Rin the First Disciple card takes forever to play, and it's not really worth it. Add a random demon to your hand. Let's see. I'm trying to find the card that would work with a discard deck. Let's see. This card's pretty good. Let's see. You can lower the cost of demons. You can play Fell Cannon, but there's really no mech cards in this new expansion to work with Fell Cannon and Wild. They changed how Dreadsteed works, but it's still a pretty good card. Destroy all minions, discard your hand. That doesn't synergize with anything. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not even seeing in the wild set, so any kind of synergy. So playing in the regular set, he is probably the best card you can play if you don't have very many Warlock cards that you like. Is just have 2 Renounced Darknesses in your deck. Replace the rest of the deck with Warlock class cards if you can, and then play this and just get a random new deck with a random new character. So whenever a card is discarded, gain +1/+1. Tiny Knight of Evil, wild only. I know that there's another card out there. So yes, here's the Mistress of Pain, Succubus demon, and how she's depicted. Here's Gnome Feratu, the half gnome, half vampire. Honestly, I kind of feel like Hearthstone's art styles kind of are all over the place, and they're a little inconsistent. So you could discard this, give it +2/+2, and return it to your hand. If you have 6 other minions, destroy a friendly minion. I'm pretty sure that there's another card out there that I'm missing. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. That's wild too. So you really can't play a discard deck in standard. So yeah, I'm left with rather questioning if these new cards add anything. Let's see, the quest is discard 6 cards and you get the Nether Portal, which I believe summons some demons for you. I don't think it's particularly that good. But playing standard with the new cards still feels like you'd, for the most part, not be doing too well. And I started this, has +1 attack. Here's the one I was thinking about, for each card you've discarded this game. So yeah, again, a discard deck card that really only works if you're playing wild. And I started this recording saying that I felt like Warlock was one of the weakest ones, and it still feels like it's one of the weakest ones. It doesn't feel like these 10 cards in Boomsday really even take a small step towards improving gameplay as a Warlock. And this is an interesting idea, but it's only introduced just willy-nilly. It doesn't work with anything else. And like, this seems like the only strategy here would be to play demons, and you've got some more demons to play, and maybe play the Omega character. Yeah. Well, that's a Warlock. There's really nothing more to say there. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me, friend me on Steam and gift me a game or a gift card. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at the new recordings of Hearthstone. We're looking at the new expansion of Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. So to look at the new cards from the new expansion, you go into crafting mode, you click include uncraftable cards, and then you click over here to Boomsday. Now, last time we looked at the Warlock, and Warlock, Shaman, Rogue, and Priest all didn't really make any sense. So we're hitting 50-50 here. The first four kind of had some cards that made some sense and felt like they would add to some synergies or some plans or styles of play. And then the rest, these four seems like they kind of are just random additions. And nothing really amazing or interesting there as far as those character class cards. The last class we have to look at is the Warrior. So it's up in the air to see if these additions make sense to me or not. Could just be also it's getting late in the evening or early in the morning, I guess, in my instance, and maybe I'm just not thinking straight. Well, we're almost done. After this is the neutral cards, and that'll take a while, but then we'll be done. First card we have for the Warrior is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 3 health mech. I haven't been seeing a lot of mechs in the last 4 character classes either. It's called the Eternium Rover. Whenever this minion takes damage, gain 2 armor. Interesting, it says 2 armor instead of gain +2 armor. I think the way this is phrased usually is +2 armor, just so it's super easy to understand. Also, I would kind of put the word gain down here and break the line after the comma, just as a general editing complaint. Next, we have a 1 mana spell called the Omega Assembly. Discover a mech. If you have 10 mana crystals, keep all 3 cards. So this is the final character class Omega cards, and this one is actually rather good because you play this on the 10th turn, so you have 10 mana crystals. You, instead of discovering and picking from 3 cards, you just get all 3 of those random cards. You're getting 3 random cards for 1 mana spells that you know are mechs. If you're playing a mech deck, this is going to be very useful. Even if you're not playing a mech deck, there's a decent chance you're going to get at least one that's magnetic, that you can use that feature to buff one of the other mechs. And you'd have 9 mana to play with. So that could be a 1-2 turn win just by playing that and having some random good drops. Next, we have a 2 mana spell called Rocket Boots. Give a minion rush, draw a card. Rush is when a minion can attack another minion but can't attack the enemy hero in the first turn that they're played. I'm not really sure, particularly for the Warrior, if you need that, since there's a decent number of minions that already have rush by default, and drawing a card as a Warrior, I'm not sure what the strategy there would be. Next, we have a 2 mana spell called Weapons Project. Each player equips a 2/3 weapon and gains 6 armor. This again feels like this is a game that would, a card that wouldn't make a lot of sense unless you already have like the Toxic Ooze card that destroys your opponent's weapon. So you might be able to play this and then play Toxic Ooze and destroy your opponent's weapon, but you'd still be giving them 6 armor for a 2/3 weapon, which still isn't really worth it. So yeah, this feels like a unuseful card unless there's some kind of trick here. It might be useful to destroy an opponent's weapon by overplaying their current weapon, but even at that, you're still giving them 6 armor. The character flavor text here says Harrison Jones was kicked off this project. Hearthstone Jones being a famous legendary card. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 4 health mech minion called Dynomatic. Battlecry, deal 5 damage, randomly split among all minions except mechs. So maybe as a warrior deck you could make a mech only deck, but I'm not sure. It really is going to boil down to how many neutral cards have mechs in them. And this very possibly is a card that really will only make sense playing wild when you can bring back some of the goblins versus gnomes mech cards and play those. It's kind of cool that they might be throwing a bone to some of the older players who are playing in wild. I know that certainly isn't the main focus of the developers of Hearthstone, Activision Blizzard, but if they're doing anything to kind of make the game in wild a little bit more interesting, that's great. Sadly, even for me though, I just don't have enough cards that I'd ever really want to play in wild. You basically have to have a complete collection until you can play in wild. Next spell we have, well, it's a weapon, is a 5 mana, 1 attack, 3 durability weapon called the Super Collider. After you attack a minion, force it to attack its neighbors. That would be slightly interesting, but it's really expensive. So you could attack a minion in the middle, and then it would attack the minion to the left or right. And I don't know if it attacks the minion on the left first, or the minion on the right first, or if it attacks them both at the same time. I'm pretty sure that minion would be taking damage, so if it attacks the minion to the left of it first and dies, it probably won't attack the minion to the right. There's a lot of questions there, and it's slightly too expensive a card to experiment with. Next we have a 6 mana, 2 attack, 5 health minion, mech minion called the Security Rover. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/3 mech with taunt. It doesn't say what the mech would be called, but whatever. Playing this on the 6th turn. There are, under the warrior cards that are designed to do like 1 damage or just a little bit of damage to a minion, and by doing that it usually unlocks an enrage card ability or gives extra attack or something. So if you were playing that strategy and you had this on the field, it would make a little bit more sense. Let's see. Next we have a 7 mana, 3 attack, 8 health minion, mech minion called the Beryllium Nullifier. Is beryllium a real element, or is it just a Star Trek element? I'm not sure. Somebody'd have to let me know in the comments if beryllium is a real element. Anyways, this mech is magnetic, so if you play it to the left of another mech, it'll add its 3 attack and 8 health, as I understand it, to that mech, and they'll fuse together. If you play this to the right of another mech, it'll keep the 2 separate. Inherently, I guess that means that everybody on the field has some kind of weird magnetic pole to them, where this side is north and this side is south, and magnetic characters have their poles reversed so that north is facing this way and south is facing this way for that card. Nope, that still wouldn't make any sense, would it? Nope, the whole magnetic concept falls apart once you start thinking about it. Alright, because the south on one side would still attract, and the north on the other side would still attract. We have a hero replacement card. This is the first and probably, well, actually I know it's the only hero replacement card for this expansion. I like the idea that just whenever they have a good idea for a hero replacement card or a quest card, they just add it. I don't think those concepts were inherently bad to the point where they screwed up. There is probably an argument where I might prefer just different modifiers or RPG like elements on the hero class cards, so that if you're playing a mage, they might have a fire blast spell, but they might have a different spell that maybe freezes enemies instead of doing 1 damage to enemies, or maybe they have a spell that just draws a card, and you can mix things up a little bit that way. They've already got face replacement cards that they're selling, but the replacement of the hero face doesn't replace how the character plays. So this is a 7 mana, 7 armor hero replacement card, which I guess technically is a spell. It has a battle cry. For the rest of the game, your mechs have rush, which is cool. It replaces your hero ability with the big red button. Activate this turn's mech suit power, which I don't know what the mech suit power is, so that's certainly not getting explained. And then we have a 9 mana legendary spell called the Boomship. Summon 3 random minions from your hand and give them rush. I don't think that's particularly a bad deal either. Alright. But I'm not sure how many mechs you're really gonna find, even in Wild. Because there's a lot of cards that might synergize a little bit, but not much. This hero replacement gives you the ability to deal 1 damage to all minions for more enraged characters. This one destroys all damaged minions. This isn't a mech. It probably should be, though. This is the hero replacement card from the new expansion. We didn't see any cards that really added a lot of armor. Yeah. So if you were going to play those cards, you're basically going to have to pick a lot of neutral cards. Because there's really not a lot here that synergizes with that. We didn't get any weapons. Most of these enemies have something they're already doing, particularly like the charge minions. There is no charge minions getting added. In general, they're trying to get rid of charge minions and replace them with rush minions. So I wouldn't be surprised if we never see another new charge minion in the game. Bouncing blade. Add copies of damage friendly minions. Yeah, there's kinda nothing here even in the wild decks. The Cruel Taskmaster is probably one of the best ones. Or Whirlwind. And then Armorsmith. Very simplistic things. Cards we've seen a lot before. Inner Rage. Yep. There's kind of nothing that synergizes there. And the selection gets only worse. Play 7 taunt minions. I don't think there were any taunt minions added. Yeah, when you're just playing in standard, the selection gets even worse. With a lot of charge minions, a lot of enraged minions. A lot of armor increased things. Yeah. Once again, I guess the last 5 of the heroes have thrown out a lot of cards that don't make a lot of sense to me. Just to look at them again, Like, this one adds armor. Okay, and it's a mech. This one gives you 3 mechs, so if you're gonna make a mech deck, that's great. This one really doesn't seem like you'd ever want to play it. This one seems like you don't ever want to play it. This one would work in a mech deck and nothing else. I don't think I'd want to play that. That works in the mech deck. That works in the mech deck. That works in the mech deck. And this one probably works with anything. So it's almost trying to get you to replace all of your cards in Warrior with just mechs, which is going to be hard depending on how many cards here are mechs. And that's what we'll look at in the next recording. We've got slightly more neutral cards than anything else. It seems about 5 pages, so 5 times 8 gives you about 40, 45 more cards being added, where there was 10 cards for each of the hero classes, which means we've seen 90, which would put the total somewhere around 135. I imagine I'm miscalculating and it's somewhere closer to 160. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Gosh, I cannot stream for 3 hours and then stream for another 3 hours. Even when I take a few hours break. My teeth are literally in pain, like just from all the talking and drinking of slightly cold water. And see, I don't know what to do really. It's like, do I want to just barrel through it? I think I kind of have to, because I bet this is not going to stop hurting for a while. Well, we just have the neutral cards to do. Nobody on the chat, which is fine. Heck, it's 5 in the morning. No surprise there. So let's begin. Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're looking at the new cards for the next expansion in Hearthstone, the Boomsday project. So to look at the new cards, you go to my collection, you click crafting, click over here include uncraftable cards, and click over here for the Boomsday project. And so we've looked at all 9 of the hero classes. About the first 4 of the hero classes made sense for what was being added, and honestly at this point I've kind of forgotten all the cards that I've seen which was about 90 cards. And now we're going to look at the neutral cards and see if any of these ring some bells and start to feel like they might synergize with some of the neutral class card with the character class cards. Generally speaking, I think we're going to see a lot of mechs and mechs and mechs, and that's kind of it. We'll see some magnetism. We might see an Omega character. We're not going to see any quests. We're not going to see any hero replacement cards. I don't believe there are any neutral spell cards, so it really is just going to be minions. Minions, if they have anything, they're going to have rush. They're not going to have charge, and they're probably not going to have anything else except for maybe death rattle. We saw some focus on death rattle. Now I'm going to kind of try and rush through this a little bit quicker. So the first minion we have is a 1-man and 1 attack 3 health minion called the Crystallizer. Battlecry, deal 5 damage to your hero, gain 5 armor. Almost certainly this should be a warrior card, but it's neutral. Although I would kind of like to see all of the character class cards, if they can become neutral cards, just become neutral cards. Next we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health mech minion called the Faithful Lumi. Battlecry, give a friendly mech +1/+1. I think we're gonna see at least 30, well, at least 15 mech cards in the neutral category, so you can have a full mech deck. But I'm not sure, depending on which character class, if that's really worth it. Seems like the warrior in particular probably is. Next we have a 1 mana, 0 attack, 2 health mech called the Goblin Bomb. Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to an enemy hero. So if you have a Death Rattle doubler and you're playing a wild, so if you have something like Baron Rivendell, this would do 4 damage to the enemy hero. Pretty good deal then. Probably a decent deal even without that if you're playing a mech only deck. Although maybe you don't need to actually play a mech only deck. Next we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health mech. That's about as basic of an attack and health as you could get for 1 mana. Called the Mekaroo. Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Joey bot, so it's like a mechanical kangaroo. It's actually a pretty good deal because of the 1/1 Joey bot. Next we have a 1 mana, 1 attack, 1 health mech called Skaterbot, which has magnetic and rush. So generally speaking, I don't think rush is going to help you with a 1/1 because you're just going to kill it on the first turn, and generally speaking, if you play a minion, rush it out and kill it in the first turn, you've played it poorly. But this does have some value with being magnetic and where it could merge to another mech. Yeah, I think generally, yeah, if you were going to pick this one versus this one, you'd be making a mistake. You should probably take this one because of the magnetic. Next we have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 2 health minion called the Clock Scale Chemist. It's not a mech. It has stealth and divine shield. Interesting. We could certainly use another divine shield. And stealth has certainly been ignored for a while. Although, yeah, there could be a whole expansion focused around stealth, honestly. Next we have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 2 health mech called Galvanizer. Battlecry, reduce the cost of mechs in your hand by 1. Certainly a good card if you're playing an all mech deck. Play this twice because you could have 2 copies, or find a Battlecry doubler, which I'm pretty sure there is one on. I need to look for it. And you could reduce it maybe as much as 4. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 1 health mech called the Spark Engine. Battlecry, add a 1/1 spark with rush into your hand. We've seen these 1/1 sparks as a character concept in some other cards. They're not terrible, but they're kind of not great either, because seems like you'd have to spend at least 1 mana to summon them, and a 1/1 with rush just gets you back to the problem with that card. Let's see. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 2 health minion called the Toxicologist. Battlecry, give your weapon +1 attack. That almost certainly should just be a rogue card, because rogue is really the only character class that can poison or increase the damage on your weapons very easily. I guess it's fine that it's a neutral card, and very few of these decks have many weapons anyways. Next we have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 4 health mech called the Unpowered Mauler. Can only attack if you cast a spell this turn. That seems like that's too much of a hassle. You could silence this card and then attack, but then it's still not really worth it for what you're getting. It's basically a card that you play just so that you had 1 more mech in your deck. Kind of the same case here. We have a 2 mana, 1 attack, 5 health mech, the upgradable Framebot. It literally has no description. This may be the only card we get in this entire expansion that doesn't have a description. Generally speaking, it would be a classic card that this would already exist and just have like no description. People find these kind of cards boring. The idea here, of course, is to use a magnet card on this and then add features to it, and you start with a pretty good structure of 5 health for 2. But you pretty much have to play that with a mech deck and a magnet card. We have a 2 mana, 2 attack, 1 health minion called the World Glider. Battlecry summon a 0/2 golden bomb. We still don't know what the golden bomb does. I assume it does some damage as a death rattle to the enemy hero, but I could be wrong. It could just do random damage to an enemy or random damage to any character. Who knows? Or it may not do anything. It might introduce a new concept where sometimes it goes off, sometimes it's a dud. That would be interesting, but we'll have to wait and see. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 4 health beast, which this is the first non-mech minion we've seen, called the Augmented Elk. Whenever you shuffle a card into a deck, shuffle in an extra copy. That certainly would be useful in a few different places, and by making it a neutral card, you could actually use it in a few different places, like the Paladin deck, where in particular I think it might work well. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 1 health minion called the Brainstormer. Battlecry, gain +1 health for each spell in your hand. This almost feels certainly like a mage only card. Next we have a 3 mana, 1 attack, 5 health mech called the Bronze Gatekeeper. It has magnetic and taunt, so if you were to play this with this, you then would have a 2/10 with taunt on your 5th turn, which is not terrible. Next we have a 3 mana, 3 attack, 3 health minion called the Electro Right. Battlecry, if you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, gain +1/+1. Even in a mage deck, I would think this is probably not worth playing as a card. Next we have a 3 mana, 2 attack, 2 health mech called the Kaboom Bot. Death Rattle, deal 4 damage to a random enemy minion. Yeah, I could see playing this particularly in a mech deck, but I could also see maybe playing it not in a mech deck. The thing is, it doesn't have a taunt, so it'd be really easy for the other player to just not attack this guy ever. Next we have a 3 mana, 2 attack, 1 health minion called the Microtech Controller. Battlecry, summon 2/1/1 microbots. Again, no clue what microbots are. I assume they're just 1/1 minions. And this is one of those cases where these characters seem to be getting reused under different names, because I've definitely seen this character in other cards. So the animations are getting reused, which kind of makes sense and kind of doesn't. Next we have a 3 mana, 2 attack, 1 health mech called the Spring Rocket. Battlecry, deal 2 damage. It's probably not too bad. Doing 2 damage and getting to pick where it plays gives you some more control. It's a 2/1, which is a little weak, but it's also a mech, so if you're playing only mechs, that makes sense. Kind of this entire expansion only makes sense if you're playing only mechs. Otherwise, you're getting very few cards that you're going to add to your current gameplay. Next, we have a 4 mana, 4 attack, 4 health mech called the Coppertail Imposter. Battlecry, gains stealth until the next turn. Feels like there's only 2 or 3 stealth cards in this expansion. Next, you have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 2 health mech called the Explodinator. Battlecry, summon 2 golden bombs. Again, don't know what a golden bomb does. Then we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 6 health legendary minion called the Harbinger Celestia. Stealth, after your opponent plays a minion, become a copy of it. That seems kind of crazy. Like, I don't see how anybody is going to successfully play this, because your opponent would just not have to not be paying attention, basically. Clearly, you would play a super weak card after this was on the field, so it became a copy of a super weak card. Next we have a 4 mana, 2 attack, 6 health minion called the Omega Defender. Interesting that we have an Omega character in the neutral. I thought they would all be class specific. Taunt, Battlecry, if you have 10 mana crystals, gain 10 attack. That's really good. I could see playing this on the 10th turn and needing to do 10 or less attack and trying to win. I could see playing this on the 10th turn and just needing a decent 2/6 taunt and that working out very well too. That's probably one of the best cards in the expansion. Next we have a 4 mana, 4 attack, 3 health mech called the Piloted Reaper. As a death rattle, summon a random minion from your hand that costs 2 or less. I don't think so. Nothing really special there. There is a legendary card that if you have 3 mechs on the field at the end of the turn, you summon basically Voltron, which is back on Netflix, and people are kind of cool about it. The new version. So now that there's so many mechs and you can build an entire deck just full of mechs, if you have that legendary card, you should definitely put it in your deck and play. Next we have a 4 mana, 3 attack, 1 health mech called the Replicating Menace. It's magnetic. We haven't seen as many magnetic cards as I would have thought. Death Rattle, summon 3 1/1 mech microbots. Next we have a 4 mana, 5 attack, 1 health mech with Rush called Steel Rager. It just has Rush though, so okay. That still has the similar problem of it'll rush and maybe kill something with 5 health, but it'll kill itself too. On the 4th turn that makes a little bit more sense than in the 1st or 2nd turn. Next we have the 4 mana, 4 attack, 3 health mech called the Weaponized Pinata. It has a death rattle to add a random legendary minion to your hand, which is pretty random. But that being said, I could see you putting this in almost any deck and it making sense. It's not particularly low on health. It's gonna give you a random legendary. You could play 2 of these pretty easily. So this would be a target to collect when opening the 150 plus card packs that I'm going to open when the new expansion happens. Next you have this 4 mana, 4 attack, 5 health legendary minion called Whizbang the Wonder Fruit. You start the game with one of Whizbang's wonderful decks. Now, I don't know if this is accurate, but according to Kriperian, who is a YouTube Hearthstone player or a Twitch Hearthstone streamer, the decks are going to be picked from the deck recipes of the different character classes, and I don't think it's going to include the classic deck recipes. So there will be 18 different deck recipes that you can't change. They're just the recommended things that they show you when you try to build a new deck, and you could play with that instead of whatever cards you have. This card makes sense for new players and basically nobody else. If you don't have better cards, play this. If you do, don't play it, certainly. You can't really dance around getting one of Whizbang's wonderful decks. I was kind of hoping though that you would just get a random collection of a deck with just some crazy cards in it. But that's not what Criterion says, and he probably knows better than me. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 3 health minion called the EMP Operator. Battlecry, destroy a mech. I don't think anybody should play this. If you're playing a mech deck, it makes no sense. If you're playing against somebody and you're running into a lot of mech decks, it still doesn't make sense. Next we have a 5 mana, 2 attack, 1 health minion called the Giggling Inventor. It has a battle cry to summon 2 1/2 mechs with Taunted Divine Shield. So that would make this effectively a 4/5 split between 3 minions, and 2 of them have Taunted Divine Shield. This is a tough decision. I could see playing it, but it's right on the edge. Because of just how expensive it is. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 3 health minion called the Holomancer. After your opponent plays a minion, summon a 1/1 copy of it. Interesting. Like, probably not going to succeed or do anything helpful in most cases though. Next we have a 5 mana, 6 attack, 6 health beast minion called the Loose Specimen. Battlecry deals 6 damage randomly split amongst all other friendly minions. So it's just friendly minions that are going to get damaged, not enemy minions. It's funny, in this expansion I'm only seeing mechs and I'm only seeing beasts. Which I think when I looked at these cards originally as they were being announced, that was also what I was getting from it. They're not really expanding any of the other character classes like pirates or anything like that. Next we have a 5 mana, 2 attack, 6 health mech called the Rusty Recycler. It has Taunt and Lifesteal. We didn't see a lot of cards with Lifesteal either. It's probably a fine card if you don't have anything better. Next we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 5 health minion called the Sea Forum Bomber. Yeah. Battlecry, shuffle a bomb into your opponent's deck. When it's drawn, it explodes for 5 damage. I suppose that is 5 damage to the enemy hero. This is a good card to play, I think, regardless of what other cards you have. And if you can get a Battlecry doubler, which is what I'm going to look for after this, that would even improve it more. Next we have a 5 mana, 4 attack, 4 health beast called Subject 9. It's a legendary card, which means you can only have 1 in your deck. As a Battlecry, add 5 different secrets from your deck. Draw 5 different secrets from your deck. So if you're playing Secret Hunter and you want to play 5 more secrets, you could play this. Honestly, I'd imagine this isn't as helpful as you would think, but it might be crazy enough to play with every now and then. Next we have a 5 mana, 5 attack, 5 health mech that has magnetic called War Gear. That's all it has though, is magnetic, which is fine. It's still probably a good card. Next we have a 5 mana, 3 attack, 2 health mech called Zillax. It's magnetic, divine shield, taunt, lifesteal, and rush, which is basically everything. I suppose it's worth pointing out that Amalgamation was a card that was recently introduced, and it acts as any kind of card, including a mech, I believe. I should double check that. So if you want to play something else, or you just don't have another mech card and you really want another mech card, play Amalgamation. Or if you need another Murloc, play Amalgamation. Next we have a 6 mana, 3 attack, 4 health minion called Arcane Dynamo. Battlecry, discover a spell that costs 5 or more. We have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 12 health mech. That's a lot of health. Called the Damage Stegatron. It has taunt, but it has a battle cry to deal 6 damage to the minions. So you'd almost have to play this on a priest deck, something that you could heal it back up. Next we have a 6 mana, 2 attack, 2 health mech called Mechanical Whelp. Death Rattle summon a 7/7 Mechanical Dragon. Again, if you have Baron Rivendell and you're playing in Wild, that doubles the Death Rattle. Otherwise, I'm not really sure this is worth playing, but maybe. Like, a lot of these mechs are just barely worth playing in the idea of having mechs so you can play the magnetized cards, and the magnetized cards are getting highly favored in a deck that would require building around this. Next we have a 6 mana, 4 attack, 4 health mech called the Missile Launcher. Magnetic. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all other characters. We have a 6 mana, 5 attack, 1 health mech called Spark Drill. It has Rush and a Death Rattle to add 2 1/1 sparks with Rush to your hand. And we're gonna jump right over 8s. There are no 8s, and it seems like there's only 1 9 and 1 10. So most of these cards are closer to 5th turn plays than they are 10th turn plays, which is fine because generally speaking you don't get to a 10th turn play if you're playing well. Next we have a 7 mana, 7 attack, 7 health minion called the Starliner. Battlecry: if you control 3 minions with 7 health, deal 7 damage to all enemies. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna have that happen very often. Even if you are playing mechs and you're playing magnetized and you're really making sure that you have minions with very high health, it doesn't feel like on the 7th turn you're likely to have 3 with 7 health. And even if you did have 3 with 7 health, there probably in that scenario are going to be very few instances in which the opponent needs to take 7 damage to kill those minions. I guess this also does 7 damage to the enemy hero, which is nice. Maybe you just keep this in your field, in your collection, just because it's a 7/7/7, which is a pretty balanced card. So I'd play this if you have something that has no special effect and is a 7/7/7. But you probably can find something better that synergizes more. Next we have a 9 mana, 9 attack, 7 health mech called Bulldozer as Divine Shield. That's basically all it has. And then the final card is a 10 mana, 10 attack, 10 health mech. They decided not to have any cards that cost more than 10 mana. It's a legendary card called Mechathune. Death Rattle: if you have no cards in your deck, hand, or battlefield, destroy the enemy hero. Well, that's kind of an amazing card, actually. But basically the only way you can guarantee this would happen is you'd have to play that card that says draw your entire deck and get rid of all the cards there, or wait a very long time and just play control until all your cards have been played out. You'd have to be able to put this on the field and keep it alive long enough to play any other cards in your hand, including almost certainly a card in your hand that would destroy this Mechathune. Or I guess maybe you don't need a spell to destroy him, because one way or the other you win, because this character would be attacking the face of the enemy hero. So if your opponent is not summoning something for you to attack and lower your health that way, you would win anyways. But you basically have to exhaust the opponent's strategy too. Let's see. So let's look at amalgamation just to double check. Yes, this is an elemental mech, demon, murloc, dragon, beast, pirate, and totem. And I imagine nightmare amalgam would also get replaced and changed if they introduced too many new things too. Let's look at Battle Cry then. So I'm looking at the wild cards to see if I can find a Battle Cry doubler card, which would be a card that doesn't start with the bolded Battle Cry phrase, but something else. Let's see. Yeah, and you really can't play Cthulhu if you're not playing Wild. Enemy spells cost 0 next turn. These Prince series of characters really didn't play well at all. And I have this card, and I personally get rid of all the gold cards, so I don't know where that one came from. Turn that into dust, where I can make better use of it. It's a little difficult to read the cards. Whenever you summon a Battle Cry minion, well, this is in your hand, gain +1/+1, so you could have a wild Battle Cry deck around that card. A lot of Battle Cry cards, certainly. And here's a classic card that still is pretty useful. A lot of classic cards are. That's why when I open the 150 plus card packs that I'm gonna open when the new expansion comes out, a lot of them have a good chance of being classic decks. Now this one can't be turned into dust because that's an uncraftable card. I'm pretty sure if there is a Battle Cry doubler, I have that card. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure it even exists. Whenever you play a Battle Cry card, gain +1/+1. Yep. Let's see. Here's a mech you would probably want to play if you're playing Wild. Is there seriously not a Battle Cry doubler card? I definitely don't remember the name of it, so it's not something that I've ever thought about using. Still searching. Yeah, just looking at some of these classic cards, it's compared to the expansion, it's still a hard decision to try and play some of the new cards when some of the classic ones are a lot better. Like, for instance, Leroy Jenkins might be still worth playing. Still looking, still searching. This is a Battle Cry and a Death Rattle, and we know Baron Rivendell doubles death rattles, but I was fairly certain that there was a Battlecry doubler card. It would have to almost certainly be a legendary card. Maybe Battlecry is just too powerful and that's why they haven't ever done that. This is a pretty good card, Spiteful Summoner. Let's see, I'm almost to the end. And I'm proving myself wrong. This is a pretty good card too. Battlecry, summon all the Death Rattle minions that had died this card. We have Yogg-Saron, cast a random spell for each spell that you cast this game, targets chosen randomly. And I believe that ends when he dies. So yeah, best I can tell there is no Battlecry doubler. That's interesting. Let's see, VOL. I'm trying to see if I can find the minion that turns into Voltron. Might be V0L. Let's try that. V0L. VO. If I type in 3 and then mechs, maybe I can. Here it is. Mimron's Head, a wild card. At the start of your turn, if you have at least 3 mechs, destroy them all and form V-07-TR-ON Voltron. So yeah, if you want to play a wild mech deck, that works for you, I guess. Honestly, I think Boomsday is better than Witchwood, but there's still a lot of things up in the air, and it feels like any cards I get are just going to be slightly added to existing decks. More and more I'm going to use hsreplay.net to push me to playing successful decks versus building my own for fun. Pretty much all you can build here would be mechs, and that's kind of it. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, I'm asking people to friend me on Steam and gift me a game or a gift card. You can pick any game you want to see me cover, or you can look at my wish list, or if you have a Steam code, you can direct message that to me through Twitter. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.